Good. All right, I'll tell you a story. This is a story that I heard from a very wonderful rabbi, and his name was Rabbi Shabbatai Slavatitsky, that he had, I think he still has, I really don't know, I haven't seen him for a while. He's a very, very genius person, a very pleasant person, and a very capable person. He had a Chabad house in Antwerp, in Belgium. I think he still does, but I don't know. Anyway, so he tells a story that when he was whenever there was the blessing of the Kohanim. Here in Israel, they have blessing of Kohanim. Some people even bless every day, but outside of Israel, they only have the blessing of the Kohanim on the holidays and the Musaf prayer of the holidays, which comes out to be how many times? I don't know, 15 times a year. Anyway, a certain very limited time, number of times of the year. And every time there would be the blessing of the Kohanim, one person would leave. An older fellow, he would leave. Now, this story took place, 40, 50 years ago. 40, 50 years ago. And so then 40, 50 years ago, what was the date back then? 1980s and the 80s. 80s, 1970, anyway, 1970, 75. So this fellow would leave. So a lot of the people that were in his congregation, especially back then, were Holocaust survivors. So a lot of them were very sort of, touchy about the Holocaust, was the thing. And they didn't want to talk about it. It was usually not a subject of conversation in the synagogue at all. But the people that were there most people that went through the Holocaust just sort of wanted to forget the whole business as much as they could. So anyway, so he invited this person over to his house, and they had a meal together, and he asked them, he got around to, from one subject to the other, he asked them in a way, I noticed that you leave the synagogue every time there's the blessing of the Kohanim. Is there a reason? Maybe you're a Kohen, maybe you're embarrassed, you don't know how to make the blessing. And he said, listen, Rabbi, I know how to make the blessing, and I'm not a Kohen, and I'm not a Kohen. I know what the blessing is, and I'll tell you the reason why I leave. He said that in his camp where he was, it was terrible. They put all the Jews, they had to work really hard all day. And in the nighttime, they put them all in this sort of barracks, whatever it was, that was maybe big enough for 200 people, and they stuffed like 500 people there. And everyone was sleeping like you sort of had to sleep on your side. Everyone was like, snoring at each people's ear, and other people's ear, and everything like everything. And the people who were like the lightest sleepers slept soundly, totally soundly. Sleep was just such a precious thing. In any case, one of the prisoners stood up. And they called him the rabbi, the Rav, whatever it was. And he was a religious Jew, and he would go around comforting people and talking to people and everything like that. He'd give sometimes his last piece of bread to people and help. And everybody there had lost somebody, and everybody, just the atrocities of what you saw. Anyway, he stood up one night and he said to everybody, listen, in a couple of weeks, 2 weeks is going to be Passover, and we need matzah. So everybody thought he was insane. It was, but only with great difficulty did you get a little piece of bread, that you could matzah. So it ended up one of the prisoners, they would take them out to work wherever they would work outside. And one of them, when they were coming back, he noticed a little piece, like a little piece of matzah on the ground when they were coming back. So he didn't believe it. And he somehow or other managed to bend down and pick it up. And he looked, and sure enough, it was a little piece of matzah. And so he went and he told the rabbi. And the rabbi went around and asked how could there possibly be matzah? And it ends up that one of the prisoners there worked cleaning up the houses of one of the officers, the Nazi officers, and he would clean up the house. And he was, I guess, the Nazi officer liked him or whatever. Anyway, so that was his job. So one day he decided that the Nazi officer left, so he decided he was going to take things into his. That's what he told him, and he was going to make a matzah. So he made a matzah for himself. He somehow or other, when he cleaned out the oven, he cleaned it out like really good, and he left the oven on for a while, so it was sort of kosher. and he found flour somewhere, and he made one matzah, and he made the matzah. Said, when you make matzah, there's all these stringencies you have to. He says, don't worry, it was kosher l'mahadrin. He made it. If the guard would have come in and smelled something, he would have been killed immediately on the spot. Maybe not on the spot. The guard probably would have taken him. The officer would have taken him outside, not to mess up the house. So a couple of seconds after the shooting. Anyway, he succeeded. He said, I succeeded, and I made a matzah. I said, but listen, don't tell anybody about it. If you want to, you can have the matzah. Please. He said, no, I want you to make 3 more matzahs, as many as you can. He says, no, please don't ask me to do that. Don't ask me. I was so afraid of it. Anyway, finally he convinced them, and he made 3 matzahs. And he came back and he gave it to the Rav. And the night of Passover, so usually everyone would come back and they would go to sleep, because sleep was such a precious thing. And not only that, when you were asleep, at least you weren't in pain and and cold and all this. So he said to everybody, he said there was like, I don't know, what did I say, 500 people, 300 people, however many people there were. So we said, tonight we're going to make a Seder Pesach, Passover Seder. And he gave everybody a little tiny piece of matzah. And the rabbi said the Haggadah by heart. And he said, okay, now here's the part of matzah. Everybody make a blessing on the matzah. And this, everybody made a blessing. They all ate the matzah. Non-religious Jews, anti-religious Jews, everyone was there. They all made the matzah. Okay, so maybe there weren't 500 people in a barracks for 200. Maybe it was 100 people in barracks for 20. However people there were, it was tremendously crowded, and all of them ate this little piece of matzah that they had. So the rabbi said, okay, now we did a mitzvah. We have to be happy. So the whole thing took, maybe 10 minutes. The rabbi, said the whole thing as fast as they didn't have any wine. They didn't have any of this. So they ate the matzah. So they said, let's sing. So they all sang, whatever song that they sang, this song, they're all singing. After about 10 seconds, 15 seconds of singing, suddenly there burst into the room all of these SS guards and with their guns out. Who is happy? Nobody's happy in Auschwitz, whatever, in Auschwitz. You have to be miserable. People only cry here. Who is responsible for this? And the officer grabbed one of the prisoners and put his gun to his head, says, if I don't hear who is responsible for this, I have enough bullets to kill everybody, one at a time. I'm going to kill you. So the Rav steps forward and says, 1 second, you don't have to kill anybody. I did it. I made them sing. He didn't say anything about the matzah. I made everybody sing. It's a holiday. I made everybody sing. If you want to kill anybody, you kill me. So the guard said, you don't tell me what to do. I'll kill you, but not right now. Tonight, nobody sleeps. The guard stood there, nobody sleeps. Everybody had to stand up. Early in the morning, everybody goes outside. And maybe it wasn't even in the morning. Could be even in the nighttime. In a couple hours, every 1 hour, everybody goes outside. They all go outside. They're all standing there in the cold. And they see that there's a scaffold, a gallows that's built, right? A little stage with a scaffold on it. A big pole and a rope hanging at the end. And they put this rabbi, they get the rabbi, he had been beaten up. And they stood him up on a little chair and they put the rope around his neck. And they said, this is what happens to anyone who is happy in Auschwitz, who sings in Auschwitz. And suddenly the rabbi says to the officer, tell me, are you a coward or are you a man? So he said, what are you talking about? So he said, if you're a man, then you'll let me have my last wish. If you're a coward, you're afraid of what I'm going to say, then kill me right now. You can kill me. You're going to kill me anyway. So the guard the officer didn't sort of know what to do. He sort of put him on a spot. So really this, the rabbi was totally in his control. What could he be possibly, what could the rabbi say? You're evil or something like that. So all he has to do is just kick the chair out from under him. And so he said, okay, how long is this request? So he said, the request will take maybe 15 seconds, maybe half a minute. He said, okay, what is your request? What do you want? Now, this story is the story being told by this old fellow who's leaving the synagogue every time there's the blessing of the Kohanim, right? He's telling this to Rabbi Shalbatitsky. So he said, I was in the crowd. I saw the rabbi standing there. And the rabbi said, I'm a Kohen. And I want to bless all these people. And it'll take me maybe half a minute. And the officer didn't know. He said, and if you're a man, you'll let me do it. So he said, okay, give this. He said, free my hands. He said, listen, if you try anything, then, I mean, his legs were tied, couldn't run away. He said, if you try anything, we'll torture you to death in front of everybody. At least this is going to be a quick death. He said, no, I'm not going to do it. I want to bless the people. And that's what he did. He stood and he made a blessing. And this blessed are you, God, that you made us holy, the Kohanim, with the holiness of Aaron, and you commanded us to bless the Jewish people with love, and then he blessed them. He gave us the blessing, right? They hold their hands like this. He made the 15-word blessing, and that's it. Kicked out the chair and they killed him. And this fellow said that blessing that I heard from that rabbi says that's the only thing that held me sane and alive, and the whole time I was in Auschwitz. That his devotion to the other Jewish people and his desire just to make this world a better place, even in the face of the worst devils there could possibly be, that's what held me through the whole Holocaust. And I don't want to confuse those words that are ringing in my ears, in my memory. I don't want to confuse that blessing of the Kohanim that he made with any other blessing of Kohanim. I don't want to hear any other blessing of Kohanim. I want that to. And that is the story of Rabbi Shabbatai Slavatitsky and blessing of the Kohanim. Have a good Shabbos with Mashiach now, everyone. 8:15, God willing, on Sunday morning, we will meet again. Shalom Uvracha. God bless you all, and we should all dance together with Mashiach now. If Mashiach comes and we're all in Yerushalayim somehow, that's one of the things of Mashiach, then there will not be a class on Sunday, but it'll resume afterwards. You'll know when.